Joining us now, Steve Cortes, Senior Strategic Advisor, Trump-Pence 2020. Steve, great to have you, man.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Steve, I got to tell you, I did a piece on this Post story the other day. I'm absolutely flabbergasted that it's in the New York Post. We've got emails that were sent to the FBI, and the fake news media and Twitter and Facebook refuses to care. In fact, if you dare put a link to the story in the New York Post, 150 years old, you get your Twitter account shut down. Steve,
Right.
What the hell is going on here?
Listen, this is actually scary, and I use that word cautiously, but it is. It's scary that this can happen in America in 2020. But this is the reality. It's the reality of the power of these tech oligarchs and the monopolies that we've unfortunately allowed them to create. We have to do a lot about that, I think, in Trump's second term. But regardless, for the near term, for the next couple of weeks into this election, the reality is the New York Post put forth very strong evidence, and no one from the Biden camp, by the way, not Joe, not Hunter, not the campaign, no one has doubted the veracity of these emails. It would be easy for them to do, say, okay, you know what, these are fake, or these are not authentic somehow. No one has said that, so we can only assume that they are legitimate emails. And if they are, and the New York Post has a sterling reputation, if they are, then it is a damning story. It paints a grim picture of what the sitting vice president of the United States was aware of in terms of his son's shady overseas business dealings. And this is beyond, John, just your sort of regular standard grift, okay? This takes it to a whole new level because we're literally talking about millions and millions of dollars flowing into Hunter Biden's bank account with the awareness of his father, sitting vice president again at the time, and not just from anywhere. This wasn't like a Canadian telecom company who was looking for some influence in Washington, D.C. This is Moscow and Beijing. These are the two most dangerous adversaries of the United States. There are only two countries in the world that we know of that have ICBMs in silos targeted at American cities. It's Russia and China. And these were the two countries that were funneling massive sums of money to Hunter Biden to gain influence and access. And again, this is critical. Hunter wasn't just some wayward son, some dilettante off, selling access around the world unbeknownst to his father. We now know conclusively that his father had full awareness, and in fact, may have been involved to some degree. We know that he did Hunter Biden did arrange a meeting with a Ukrainian oligarch, one of the heads of Burisma, to come and meet the then vice president of the United States. We know that because in the email he profusely thanks Hunter Biden. All of us wondered, why did Burisma want to pay Hunter Biden, somebody with no experience at all in the energy industry? Why do they want to pay him $50 or perhaps some reports say even $80,000 a month for, quote, consulting? Well, now we know why, because they got direct access to his father, the vice president of the United States. And the fact, John, that ABC last night had Joe Biden live on a stage for 90 minutes and didn't even mention this story, that is just complete journalistic malpractice. It's a total dereliction of duty. It's a failure to be even remotely a patriot. I mean, you have to ask him this question. And yet George Stephanopoulos just pretended, the story never happened.
Yeah, and the way the fake news media is portraying it, it's calling it an unverified, discredited story. Why did they do that with the story in the Atlantic about the president disparaging our dead soldiers in France? Right. Those are unnamed sources. That was not verified. In fact, there were 25 people that were with him, all disputed that he never said that at any time.
Right.
So why does the Atlantic story get all over the fake news day after day after day, and the presidents ask those questions, yet this story, which is totally verified because you have emails, gets buried and censored?
No, listen, it's despicable. It really is. And again, listen, if these emails are fake, well, come forward and tell us that, right? It would be very easy to say, you know what, those aren't my emails, or this has been somehow doctored. No one has said that. I think that the silence on that issue is pretty deafening, right? Because it tells us that they are real. These are real emails. It certainly appears.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. Why did they simply come out and deny it? And why is the fake news, asking for a blanket denial? In fact, what they said is, to be honest here, Steve Cortes, with a senior strategic advisor, Trump-Pence 2020, what they actually said was the opposite, because the talking points they put out on the first day was said, well, we checked back on the schedule, and there was no meeting on his official meeting visit. Then it comes out that he's got a bunch of meetings that aren't on the schedule, like everybody does.
Of course.
Then it comes out that he did meet the guy. So they change his story from he never met him to, well, it was only a cursory meeting, which means it was a short meeting. So they went from he didn't meet him at all to, well, it was only for a couple of minutes. So now we're debating the time of the meeting. I mean, are you kidding me? And nobody picks this up.
They're already backtracking on it. And by the way, as if the Vice President of the United States would put on his schedule, meeting with Ukrainian oligarch at the behest of my crackhead son. Like, no, okay, you don't put that on if you're going to meet with him, clearly. But here's the other thing then. So as bad as all of that information is, and it's terrible, right, regarding the Bidens, which I believe, and I don't think there's an exaggeration to say this, they are a crime family. In a sophisticated and sustained way, they have sold access all over the world, and again, particularly to the enemies of the United States, and they've been doing it for decades. But as bad as that is, maybe even worse is the suppression of the story by these social media giants, by Twitter and Facebook specifically. I mean, think about this. So you could, as you mentioned, you could not share the link. I mean, you literally could not copy and paste the link and share it on your social media platform. And that was true of everybody, just regular Americans, all the way up to the Trump campaign. Now, consider this also. The Trump campaign, our official Twitter accounts were suspended only for sharing this information from the New York Post. That is outright election interference. When the President of the United States has his official campaign sites suspended by social media companies, that is open election interference. By the way, it was the White House itself, too. Kayleigh McEnany, our press secretary, had her account suspended. They are intervening in a way that is so brazen and so bold that they're not even trying anymore to hide their tracks about how open their preference is for Joe Biden to be president of the United States. And to the listeners out there, they might think, well, why do they want Biden so badly? Look, giant corporate interests, all the powerful moneyed interests in this country, whether it's a corporate media or big tech or hedge fund titans, all of them want Joe Biden to win because they want to retreat to a place of economic globalism. They want to retreat to a place of economic submission to China because it serves their interests, even though it crushes American workers. They can't stand our America First movement. So it's Trump and the deplorables against all of these powerful interests. Now, we are going to prevail, okay, because the vote of one of your listeners in Virginia matters just as much as Mike Bloomberg's vote, thank goodness. We are going to prevail, but we have to realize the battle that we're in and the battle we're fighting. It really is Trump and the deplorables versus the credentialed, crony, powerful, moneyed interests, including big tech.
How does this story play out in the campaign? I mean, it's not going to get coverage. The fake news has already decided to censor it and bury it. Stephanopoulos, I mean, what you said earlier, Steve, think about this. An hour and a half, they don't ask him a single question. Yet Trump goes on with Stephanie Guthrie or whatever her name is on MSDNC last night, and she asks him about some conspiracy thing, QAnon or something.
Yeah.
And she asked him 5 times. Like he kept saying, I don't know anything about it. Oh, yes, you do. I don't know anything about it. No, you do know something about it. I don't know anything about it. Well, tell us what you know about it. Well, they're against pedophilia. There it is. You're a conspiracy theorist. That was an asinine array of questions on something that, look, if you offered me $1,000 right now, Steve, and said, tell me what QAnon is, I'll give you $1,000. I have no idea. I don't involve myself in that. So, like, he didn't know. I don't know. Who cares? Why is that question even asked? Then they ask him again about, have you disavowed white supremacy? That's like, have you stopped beating your wife? Well, I don't even have a wife. But if you had one, you'd beat her. I mean, how does this stuff go on?
Now, listen, last night, it was just such a study in contrast. I'm sure a lot of Americans, like me, were flipping back and forth between the two. And I was on Laura Ingram's show last night, and I used this analogy. Up there in Philadelphia, ABC, they put on the equivalent for Joe Biden, basically in terms of his town hall. It was like a church ice cream social. I mean, it was that gentle and serene and friendly, okay? And then down in Miami, NBC, they staged a knife fight for President Trump. Now, thankfully, he's a pugilist, and he can absolutely handle it, and I thought he did great. He's the best. I call him the Floyd Mayweather of politics because he's the best counterpuncher in the history of media, I think. So, he gave much better than he took from Savannah Guthrie. But nonetheless, it was really, I think, on display, the contrast. It was, a tale of two cities, a tale of two town halls at the exact same time, how much they are coddling and trying to protect Joe Biden. Again, 90 minutes, not a mention of this bombshell Hunter Biden corruption story for 90 minutes versus what Samantha Guthrie did in what was supposed to be a town hall. By the way, literally for 20 minutes, if you notice, it was all Savannah. It wasn't a town hall. It was her debating the president, much like Chris Wallace debated the president, by the way, in Cleveland. So, we saw this happen another time where the supposed moderator is in no way trying to act like a referee or trying to act like a journalist, but instead acting as a, quote, resistance opponent of the president. And again, he can handle it, better than anybody can handle it. I thought he did great, and I thought the president really shined last night when he was talking to those regular Americans who were there. There's a genuineness and a connection when he talks to just regular working class people that I think is just fun to see and frankly inspiring. And I think even people who aren't fans of the president can see that, the way he connects with them. And it's incredibly different from the way he talks, of course, to these fake news journalists. I really believe that the president, when he first said that the fake news was the enemy of the people, I thought that was too harsh. And I actually said so a few times on television. I was like, that phrase is a little harsh. You know what? I'm wrong, and the president was right all along. The fake news media in this country, they are the enemy of the people, and they showed it last night.
Steve Cortes with us, senior strategic advisor, even a step up. Steve,
you can call me anything.
Let's get to Christopher Wray. These emails went to the FBI in what was it? October. What happened? No, they didn't give them to Senator Johnson's committee, who was actually handling this. They didn't give it to Johnson's committee. They didn't give it to anybody. It just stays in the FBI under review for what? 8 months, 9 months, now 10 months?
Right.
What's up with it?
There's a lot of, there's more questions than answers, right? Because of this bombshell story. And, a lot of questions that need to be asked and answered. Unfortunately, they were not asked of Joe Biden last night. They will be, I guarantee, by Donald Trump next Thursday on the debate stage, because if we can't rely on the fake news media, we certainly can't rely on our president to press Joe Biden on all of these issues. But to your point about the FBI, a lot of questions need to be answered there as well. Now, I don't know that we're going to get those answers between now and Election Day. I just don't know if there's enough time to really dig and investigate into what happened there. But, again, there's a lot of items for Trump's second term, and we need to win, and we're going to win. There's a lot of items for his second term, and one of them is going to be investigating exactly what happened here with the FBI, because did they sit on this information? If they had this computer and they had all of these emails, did they sit on it for purely political reasons to try to protect Joe Biden? The people need to know that. And I think this is a critical distinction, too, that we need to make, John. FBI agents out there are overwhelmingly amazing people. They're patriots who do hard, dangerous work for our country to protect us. Mm-hmm. The politicized leadership of the FBI for many years, unfortunately, has been totally corrupt. And I suspect that Chris Wray is one of those people. It certainly appears that way right now. The president doesn't seem to be very happy with him for good reason. And that's a shame, because some of the political leaders of the DOJ, the FBI, have unfortunately betrayed a lot of the hardworking line people, agents who do hard, patriotic work to protect our country.
Well, Steve, I think that Christopher Wray, at least by the president, the FBI director, Chris Wray, has to be at least asked the question by President Trump, what's the deal with these emails? Why didn't they ever get to Johnson's committee? Because to me, I don't have a problem with them not publicizing it, okay? I don't have a problem with that. But Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin had a Senate committee set up just for this. Right. And he's the ranking member, and it should have went to him. And they could have figured out, just like when they got a whistleblower, they sent it to Adam Schiff and his committee immediately.
Right. But John, let me tell you this. Let me, and you and I don't much disagree, but let me press you on this a little bit. Here's why I don't think it would have been enough to just give to Roger. If these emails are authentic, all right, there's evidence of a crime in here, and a fairly serious crime, and that is that Hunter Biden was acting as a foreign agent, and he was not registered as a foreign agent. That's a serious crime in this country. So, if these emails are authentic and the FBI had them and they ignored them, I think it means that they looked the other way because they didn't want to prosecute the vice president's son. I mean, don't you agree?
Yes. I really hadn't thought of that angle of it. But at any rate, these emails should have gone somewhere. And, it seems that when you say protecting Biden, it's like, well, what did they protect him from? And it looks like they protected him from Bernie Sanders, because had these come out, Sanders is the nominee, right? No question about it. There's no way that the Democrats would have nominated Biden. But now they simply – and on the And on the debate next week, all Biden is going to say is, well, that's already been debunked. That's discredited, right?
Right. He believes if he says discredited enough that makes it true. And, I thought of that in the first debate. He said 3 times he's been discredited. And I thought to myself, I was there at the debate in Cleveland, discredited by whom? By you? In your head?
Who?
These have not been remotely discredited. That's a great point, by the way, about the Bernie people. And, I think you and Steve Bannon and others have done a great job of reaching out to Bernie voters to let them know that they may not agree with Team Trump on a whole lot. However, they sure don't agree with Team Biden, right? He is a committed corporatist globalist who sold this country out, sold working-class people out to China. And on that score, on the issues of China and trade, the Bernie bros and the Trump train actually have quite a lot in common. And I hope that if we can convince the Bernie people that they have been largely cheated in terms of their primaries and in terms of their movement by the Democratic Party, by its allies in corporate media, we can hopefully sway some of them to come our way, or at least convince them to not vote for Biden, to leave the president's part of the ballot blank. And that could tip certain states our way, places like Wisconsin and Michigan where Bernie's very popular.
Steve Cortes with us. Steve, I got 2.5 minutes. I'm going to ask you about some states, the polling, what you're seeing. We're going to go rapid fire. Let's start with the spinal cord of Trump's reelection, Florida.
Look, we're looking good in Florida. We can't be complacent at all. We have to earn the vote of every Floridian. I think the thing that's going to tip Florida our way this time, again, is the fact that Florida has reopened. Florida has really been an exemplar for the country in terms of reopening aggressively but safely. And Governor DeSantis deserves just enormous credit for the way he has protected the elderly of Florida while allowing society there to get back to normal. In-person school, youth sports, bars and restaurants are opening. So the fact that Florida is flourishing and the economy is just humming there, I think is going to be part of why the president is going to win his adopted home state.
Okay, I was in Greenville, North Carolina yesterday. The president had a rally, 1 o'clock, 15,000 people show up. North Carolina.
Right. Listen, I've been doing tons of North Carolina media, a lot of radio shows as well as TV down there. And I have to tell you, here's, I think, the most compelling argument we have in North Carolina is North Carolinians do not want to return to a place of economic globalism because North Carolina was decimated by NAFTA and by China's inclusion into the WTO. It used to be a powerhouse state for the industries of textiles and furniture manufacturing. Both of those industries have been basically wiped off the map of North Carolina, sadly. And not because they couldn't compete, not because they didn't make great products, but because of predatory trade practices from foreign countries, particularly China. Joe Biden was the principal architect of those very trade structures. North Carolinians know that. They know that there's a manufacturing renaissance going on in this country right now because of President Trump, and I think they're going to decide to rehire Donald Trump as our national CEO.
All right, final one, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, I think fracking is going to put us over the finish line. Joe Biden has tried to be all over the board on fracking. When he's in PA, he claims, I'm pro-fracking. When he's with AOC and Ilhan Omar and his squad friends, he's anti-fracking. Here's the reality, though, too. 59% of the American people, according to Rasmussen's survey, do not believe that Joe Biden would finish his first term in office. That's a pretty stunning lack of confidence in him and his capacity. If that is the case, then, that means there is a President Kamala Harris, and she has not been wavering on fracking. She says 100% total ban on fracking. That would be miserable for Pennsylvania.
Steve Cortes, Senior Strategic Advisor, Trump Pence 2020. Steve, thanks for being with us